Hi, I'm Warren.
And I'm Adam, and we work for the Sanguine Writing House, which is the UK's leading provider of online and in-person mystery strategy games.
And this is our podcast, Minefield. And today we're joined by Pete Tarbuck, a very special guest, and we're going to be talking around self-care. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Pete, before we get started?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. Really privileged and honoured to be part of your podcast. So thanks for having me. My name's Pete Tarbuck. I've worked in the banking industry for over 20 years, and more recently, I've set up a mental health group just to support people going through a tough time. I've got around 57 members, I think, now, who I'm helping. So it's going really well, and I look forward to helping other people too.
Cool. So, as this today's going to be around kind of self-care. I think maybe what would you class as self-care if anybody was listening or wanting to know a little bit more?
I think first of all, we need to realise that self-care is important, and I tend to compare it to, let's say you own a car and you've owned a car for 2 years and you haven't had it serviced. That car is going to break down. Oil change, filter change, that kind of thing. And if you associate yourself, your body, your mind to servicing a car, it's exactly the same kind of thing. You need to look after yourself. You need that self-care. Self-care is crucial. Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably the easiest way to describe, I think, self-care. If you own a car, you need to look after it for it to run. And if you don't look after it, it won't run. And it's exactly the same as, a printer. If you have a computer and you link it to a printer, you've got documents to print every day. If you don't look after that printer, your printer isn't going to work. And I associate things like that, technically to actual self-care. It's very similar in my opinion.
And I think this, you've got kind of your physical self-care and your mental well-being self-care, but one feeds into the other, doesn't it? If we don't look after ourselves physically, that can impact on our mental well-being and vice versa. So I think, things like sleep, things like, the right diet, all those kind of things can improve your mental health. But you've got to maintain it, haven't you? And that's what you're saying.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're right. Exercise, dieting, and a good balance of those kind of things. I'm not one for going to the gym. I never have been. But what I do is go around the park, get some greenery and some fresh air and some nature around you.
Yeah.
And even dietary or things like that. I'm not one for dieting or saying, oh, I can't eat that. But if you've got a good routine of eating at the right times, don't eat your tea at 10 o'clock at night, have it a set time every night. That is a form of self-care, having good routines. So I'm not saying eat kebab every day because that's obviously bad, but you get my point. Eat the right amount of the right food at the right times, get the right amount of exercise during the week, at the right time. It's all about balance and routine, and then good routine form habits, and then you don't think about it because you just do it.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of it is finding that balance, isn't it, of not neglecting what you want or what your body craves, but doing it in the right kind of way that you're satisfying yourself, but also doing the best for yourself by, looking after the internals, I suppose. Like as you're going back to your car and that, yeah, you want to make sure it's nice and serviced, but every now and again you want to put your foot down and have a bit of a blast, don't you? So, you know, it's, yeah, Sasha says, yeah, spot on. You need treats, you know.
Treats. I actually wrote that down as one of my notes, actually. Yeah, treat yourself. You know, have something to look forward to. You know, if you're thinking about going on holiday or a weekend away, or, you know, whatever you want to do, whatever you can afford, whatever you enjoy doing, make sure you've got it booked. Make sure you've got something to look forward to. Because I think you know, if you flip it on its head and you say, "Oh, I wish I'd have booked a holiday," or "I wish I'd have done that," that can actually have the reverse effect. You know, because you haven't booked it. You know, so the form of self-care there is to book a holiday or book something that you like doing. Treat yourself to something in the future. Then you've got something to look forward to, and that isn't, again, it's a form of healthcare, self-care.
I suppose it's, yeah, similar to giving yourself goals almost. You know, I want to go here, I want to do this, or I want to get something. So, yeah, how do I do it? And you're putting those things in place to make sure that you can get that. So I suppose it's the same kind of thing of, you know, you want to be living a little bit better. You want to be more aware of who you are and the things around you. So, yeah, putting that in place and doing that. I suppose one thing that I know I've struggled with before is knowing what I want, or knowing, you know, what I need to do. To say it'll work differently for every person.
Yeah.
It's just having that motivation, or you know, getting to that point of realizing this is what I need, or this is what I want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's where routine and habit comes in. You know, because if you can, good routine form habits. You know, if you're in a good routine, if you get up at certain time, eat breakfast certain time, do things at certain time, consistency, I think, as well. You know, then once you've done that, they become habits. It's like driving a car. For the first time, you don't know how to drive a car. You have to get that routine of driving a car, changing gear, knowing what to do when.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's very much you know, it's forming those habits by being consistent in your routine. And once you've got that, and I think that's, you know, it's a huge part of self-care.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it takes a little bit of willpower, determination to establish those routines and habits. You know, especially for people, you know, working from home, it's very easy to not go out for a walk. It's very easy to, I'll just do this last piece of work, or, you know, oh, I don't need a drink. I'll just keep going. But by not doing those little breaks and not kind of going for those things that help us maintain our self-care, you know, we're damaging our mental health. So you need that determination, don't you? You need that motivation to go, right, enough's enough. Now you need to stop now and go for that walk. And some days you feel like, yeah, I can do that. I can stop and I can go. Or some days, you know, when you feel quite pressured and a little bit kind of anxious, it takes more motivation, I'd say.
It's easy. It's easy not to do something.
Yeah.
It really is. But I think when you get that kind of mindset, which is very easy to fall into, we've all probably done it. It can actually have that negative effect because you think you've got away with it once. Oh yeah, I won't go for my walk today. It's too easy to do that, you know. And I think there's a comment I've just read actually that you can't help others if you don't look after yourself first. I think that is a very, very good way of putting it. And I've got quite an extreme example, but hopefully you'll get my point on this. If you're on an aeroplane and it's about to crash, you know, the oxygen mask comes down, but you're with your family, you've got your young kids with you, let's say. The first thing you want to do really is to help them. but without that oxygen, you can't help them. You know, it's a very extreme example, but you need to look after yourself first in order to look after other people. And I always use that example for self-care. And I know it's, you know, it is quite extreme, and you know, hopefully it doesn't ever have to happen to us, of course, but you know, hopefully you get my point there. And I think that that point is very, very important in terms of self-care. You know, help yourself
Yeah.
before you can help others.
Well, I think using that example is actually great, because I think sometimes you need that extreme, you know, to get that point across.
Yeah.
You know, you could say it multiple other ways, but putting it that drastically to somebody does
Yeah.
mean it's just like, wow, actually, yeah, I never actually thought it was that important. I thought I've always been all right, so I'll always be able to do something. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's, yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? And again, we go back to the car service analogy, you know, where we're not looking after ourselves or not looking after the car, that it just simply can't keep on going, can't keep going, not without some care.
yeah, I think some people find it as well, because I know I'm one of those where it's break it down into smaller elements. So small steps, that little make one change kind of thing, and make
Yeah.
that your routine, and then add to it. So like you know, you check your tires, you do that every week, and then you start checking your oil. You know, so I think it's, for me, one little bit at a time is far better, because, like I say, then it becomes that that routine, and then you just add into that routine. It just becomes easier to a certain extent, just to add that little extra in each time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you'll get to know that I absolutely love an analogy. So I've got another one for you. So if you imagine a plane taking off, right, in a certain direction, let's say we're going to America and it's facing the right way for America. If that plane deviates 3 degrees to the left, it's a tiny, tiny change, probably unnoticeable. But as soon as that plane takes off, it's not going to end up in America, is it? It's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So these little changes, these tiny, tiny changes, can make a massive difference if you keep doing them, you know. So keep doing these little tiny changes, because it is amazing what you can achieve if you have the right mindset, if you use or try and use the logical side of your brain. We are very emotional people, you know, human beings are, we live off emotion, don't we? Positive
Yeah.
and negative. So if you can tap into your logical side of the brain and say, actually, no, I need to do this because of XYZ, you know, and then train your brain to keep that mentality of, right, I need to think logical here. I need to do this because, you know, and have this positive language in your own mind. You know, I don't know whether you've heard of Wentworth Miller. If you ever seen Prison Break, Wentworth Miller, he actually said that if I spoke to my friends how I spoke to myself, I'd have no friends. You know, so he was talking very negatively to himself in his own mind, and he really suffered. So he realized that, made some changes, and actually started using positive language, telling himself, you know, I can do this, I will do this, it's good, I'm doing a good job. You know, and he changed himself, he changed his mindset, he changed the way he spoke to himself, because he was very negative about himself.
We are our own worst critic, aren't we? You know, even when we're trying to do something positive, there's that part of our brain that tells us that we're not going to do it, we're not going to be able to do this change, that we're not going to be able to succeed. And there's always that little bit of self-doubt. For me, there is anyway, you know, and you're right, you've got to tap into that logical side of your brain that tells you, no, you need to do this, and the reason you're doing this is because, and you know, look at the benefits when you have done this, and look at the disadvantages when you haven't done this. You know, but as human beings, we self-doubt ourselves. You know, we procrastinate and we don't kind of believe in ourselves. And it's finding that self-confidence, isn't it? To go, you're okay, you're doing okay. And you know, the fact that you went for a walk yesterday is great. You know, you didn't go for a walk for as long today, but you still got out the house and, you know, congratulate yourself and talk to yourself in that positive conversation.
Well, so I think we just had a comment there as well from Andy. I think less about the what ifs and more about the what if I don't. You know, because that is, yeah. There's much more of a negative kind of impact on you. It's one of those, you see something you want to do, and it's like, what if I did this? What if I just do it?
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a lot worse if you don't do it. Really, isn't it? It's you know, it's better to try and fail than not to try, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah. And Andy Aston there he's a very good friend of mine, actually. Hi, Andy. You know, I think he's got it's a brilliant point. You know, what if I don't? You'll only end up regretting. You'll only end up thinking, I wonder what could have been. You know, it's like if you're going for applying for a job, let's say. Oh no, I don't think I could do that. You know, why would you talk yourself out of it before you've even tried? And we do it all. We always do it. Everyone does it. And it's easier said than done. You know, I'm making it sound really simple. It's absolutely not. But if you can get the mindset correct, if you can get that positive attitude, that positive mindset of, I'm going to give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? I don't get the job. You know,
exactly. That is it, isn't it? It's, yeah.
And even then, you know, you'll have more experience of writing a CV, writing an application, having an interview, learning some new interview techniques if you're not successful in the role. You know, and I think in every situation, if you can try and take a positive, even if it's a challenging or negative situation, try and see something positive out of it, because that will help you next time and it'll help you on your next challenge.
Yeah. Well, I suppose easiest way is it's always a learning curve, isn't it? You know, regardless of, you don't get the outcome that you wanted, but you still get something from it to take forward. There we go then. So what's that? So how, yeah, as Phil says there, what do you do to stay positive?
What do I do to stay positive? Well, I try and avoid watching Wolverhampton Wanderers lose, because that obviously wouldn't help. But no, joking aside, to stay positive, I think, do you know, one of the first things that's important to me is getting positive people around me. I think in past times I have spent far too much time with the wrong people, and over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I realised that some people aren't any good for your mental health, for your your well-being. So I cut people off. You know, certain people I literally stopped interacting with, and the likes of Andy Aston, who's on this call. You know, Andy, I openly tell Andy that, you know, he's a positive hangs about with me. Exactly. Exactly. Do you know, I didn't actually see that comment until it popped up. But joking aside, you know, Andy's a really good friend of mine. We bounce off each other. We share experiences with each other. We talk, and that is such a powerful thing. It's such a powerful thing. Yeah, instincts to laugh, but actually, mates are so important. The right people around you is critical, and that is what I do to stay positive, because, you know, you need people, don't you? You need good people around you.
Yeah. I mean, me and Warren are very lucky. You know, we've known each other since we were 11, and we work together. But, you know, we'll talk to each other, and, you know, we'll bounce off each other, like you said, and we'll have that discussion and that honesty, because negativity breeds negativity, and if you've got negative people around you, you know, it can make your mental health worse. It can, you know, make you spiral a little bit. So, you know, I'm very lucky to have kind of somebody like Warren that it helps me stay positive, just like you are with kind of Andy.
That's
and
good.
it's, you know, I think for men especially, to have that ability to talk to somebody honestly and openly is invaluable, because, you know, everybody knows that men don't particularly open up. So to have that sounding board is great.
And I think one of the reasons that I created the group that I run, even knowing that that group is there, that opportunity is there for someone to talk, you know, they don't necessarily have to talk, but knowing that they've got an opportunity to talk and a safe place to talk or share their challenges or what they're going through is half the battle. Because a lot of people don't know where to turn. They don't have anything or anyone necessarily. You know, so that group, just knowing that it's there, I think is half the battle for some people.
That's it. It really is. Yeah. I think that's kind of what we wanted to do with this, was to like be able to open it up to people so people can get involved, comment, and then obviously share what's going on. And I'm hoping that, you know, people started to do that now, and it is great to hear from so many people. And I think this has been, you know, it's been great today, and listening to you has really, you know, made me think about things a little bit differently. Obviously, there's things I'm going to start hopefully putting in place, and then again, having people around me like Adam. I presume we'd be friends now as well. So, you know, we could talk if I needed to, and I think it just helps out a whole unmeasurable amount, really. I think it's just be so great for everybody.
Yeah.
With that, I say it has been a great session, and we really loved listening to you and hearing your experiences and your advice. That was that for me, that was probably the best part of it. So I think we're going to be continuing next week with a theme around unhealthy habits, I think, which I think will lead quite nicely on from this. So I think is that next week at the same time, Adam?
Yeah. So 12:30 next Tuesday. Yeah, talking about unhealthy habits in terms of maybe we'll talk a little bit about masking as well, you know, and some of the things that men do to mask their issues in terms of unhealthy habits. So we'll be posting our guests for next week in our social media platforms. And we'll also be uploading this onto our social media as well. Thank you very much, Pete, for coming on and talking to us. I think it's been great. I think it's been invaluable for a lot of people. You know, and just to be able to just talk and, you know, talk about different issues and the things that we experience as well as you. So yeah, thank you very much. It's been great.
Welcome. Thanks very much for having me, guys. Appreciate that.
I think, yeah, again, I hope you come back and we'll have another chat. It was brilliant. Thank you for that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And we'll say goodbye to everybody. So thank you very much.
Thanks everyone.
See ya.
Bye-bye.